What are we talking about today, Doug?
It's gonna be go back my notes here. Avoiding conflicts and managing expectations.
That's the world today.
Yeah, it's for those of you who are here, it's a long kind of thing. I just kind of started writing things down on that and where I wanted to go with it, and breaking it down, between what I wanted to say and what the important parts were. And while I'm doing that, I get a whole bunch of complaints on the line. I'm answering the phone, I can't keep up with the phone, and we had a commercial guy. The commercial guys they're a different breed, first of all, for any of you guys who haven't dealt commercial. And they're just a different breed altogether. They're not your residential guys. They don't follow all the conventional rules that we do. They're very out there and do their own thing, and they like to do double end their deals. They don't want, sometimes they don't want to share, so they'll try and cut us out or cut you out, and they'll really pick on the new guys. So we got a call, and the guy says, "Well, first of all, I'm going to file a complaint with the board that you're contacting the developer that's lease is a lease, so it's a different animal." And they contacted the developer, and I'm going to file a complaint. And I talked to our realtor, and I said, "Well, did you contact the developer?" He said, "No, I didn't do anything at all." That's well, he must be trying to throw you off or something. I don't know, trying to throw you a curveball there. Did you put an offer in or offered a lease? And I said, "Yeah, I did." I said, "Well, get them back there and get them on the phone, or get them, preferably." And I'm gonna kind of jump around here, guys, a little bit with what I'm doing, because it all kind of ties together. But this story just came out across my desk right now. Anyway, I said, "Well, if you put an offer in, according to the rules of cooperation, any offer has to be presented to the listing agent, or the seller, or the developer, or the owner, whatever it is." So I said, "Well, it sounds like this guy's playing games with you. So what we want to do first off is we want to switch over to getting it in writing. So we can't take things to the board or to council or anywhere else when it's word of mouth. It's he said, she said doesn't count." And I'll get into that a little bit more down the way. So anyway, I said, "Well, get on the email there and get it in writing, and ask him if he presented your offer." So that's number one. And the other thing is that, I mean, of course, open up the lines of communication here, and be professional about it always, and open up lines of communication, and ask him, well, why he thinks that you contacted his client, and maybe there's a misunderstanding there, miscommunication. So clarify that, and make sure it's not just something like that. And if the guy is really kind of blowing smoke and throwing curveballs, then the next thing I wanted to say was that, did you present my offer? Regardless of what you can go ahead and file a complaint. I don't really care, but did you present my offer? Now they're obligated to present the offer, and now if they didn't, or and if they commit to that in writing, they're at fault now. They've admitted it to us, and so we're going to kind of get into that in a little bit deeper way going forward, because in dealing with conflicts, I broke it down into three parts. I broke it down into avoiding conflicts with your seller as a listing agent, with your buyer as a buyer's agent, and with other realtors. So there's three kind of sets of conflicts there, and along with avoiding conflicts, it kind of goes hand in hand with managing expectations, because I think that most conflicts are caused by miscommunications. So the whole idea here is to communicate with your clients and the other realtors, and read the rules of cooperation, so on and so forth. And that's the other thing I said to the realtor there, is that I said, look, there's a section in the rules of cooperation that says that any offer has to be presented to the seller, or the owner of the property, right away, as soon as possible. So I said, even if you have to, because the commercial guys are a different breed, quote that section of the rules of cooperation and send that to them. They have to be presented right away. Did you present it? And we're trying to corner this guy in to see what he's doing. First of all, I want to find out if it's a real conflict and if he's just, playing games. And if he is, we're going to try and corner him. Not that we will, but the thing is, for the complaint, I said, well, tell him to go ahead and complain. He doesn't have anything to it's he said, she said. And I said to our realtor, I said, just make sure you didn't call, the developer and talk to them, right? No, I didn't. Okay, well then we're fine. Tell him to go, blow it out as whatever, kind of thing. So, let's stand up for yourself, and you guys are gonna. I think the best way to stand up for yourselves is knowing the rules, and knowing what's what, and of course calling me or Mike, and getting your we're like your coach in a fight, and we're in your corner, and we're going to help you do that. And when I look at your clients, they're my clients. So we all represent the same people. So if you've got a buyer or a selling or an owner, then I represent them as well with you. So we're together in that, and that's why sometimes conflicts for me can expand a little bit. Because if I get two realtors in the office, and let's say Gavin and Gallo, Gavin's working for the buyer and Gallo's working for the seller, and you guys got a problem with each other, then I've got a conflict of interest because I represent on Gallo's side the seller, and I represent on Gavin's side the buyer. So I'm in a conflict of interest. So I have to step out, and I have to, I'll take maybe Gallo and I'll talk to Mike and say, Mike, or one of the senior realtors in the office will guide Gavin and help Gavin out and represent Gavin. So, kind of think of that, guys, when you're dealing with that kind of thing. So, when I'm talking to you, I'm part of your team, and we're trying to help your client. And one of the things that I always tell you when you get in, and I'm going to go back and forth in this, but the first question I'm going to ask you is, who are you working for? And that's going to help down the road here because it kind of clarifies things a little bit. So let's start off first with what I wanted to go over first is working with your sellers and listing as a listing agent. The first thing not to do is don't assume anything. We all assume that they know what we're talking about. You guys deal with these contracts day in and day out. You deal with the MLS day in, day out. You deal with subject removals day in, day out. You deal with, these clauses day in and day out. Oil tanks. You deal with, financing, inspection, all that kind of stuff. Your client probably sells their house, once every 10 or 15 or 20 years, and sometimes even longer if it's an older person. And they don't know what's going on in the contract, what's going on in the listing, and that kind of thing. And to give you an example of that, I went in, I was referred to a guy, he's an older guy, he's a biker. He's a really tough guy anyway. He lived in New Westminster, and went in there, and I was kind of a little nervous and all that. And I kind of had all this presentation to go in, and I went in there and I kind of babbled through it all and this and that and something else. And here's all the, the ifs, ands, and buts. And he was already sold. He had I had been referred to him, so he was kind of accepting the referral from the friend that referred me, and he already kind of approved me. So he signed the contract. His wife signed the contract. We went through the whole deal. We went to. It comes down to I brought another realtor in because it was out of my area. I do that a lot. If I'm not working an area, I'll bring another realtor in to help me out. I don't want to leave my place at 8 o'clock at night to do a showing in New Westminster. So I'll bring somebody else that's expertise out there, and that just works for me. You guys do whatever you want. On a cold, rainy, miserable night, you don't want to be driving out there in the middle of the winter. So that's my thing. Anyway, the other realtor there, we're standing there, and we had sold the place, and I had explained all the contract. I thought I explained the contract to the guy and what was going on and everything was that. And he says, after the sale, and we're going through it, and standing there in the backyard with the other realtor, and he says, how much is this going to cost me, and how much do I get out of this? And I mean, it totally came to me that I didn't explain anything to the guy. Hey, yeah, it's 7, 3.5 on on the sale, and we're gonna We're going to pay the other guy 3.225, the other guy 1.1625. If that happens, I'm going to get this and that and something else. If nobody comes in and get that, it didn't mean a darn thing to the guy. He didn't catch any of that. His wife didn't catch any of it, and they signed the contract. And I felt really bad. And the other realtor had to explain. Well, didn't have to, but was there and explained to him, what it was in dollars and cents. And my point here is that slow down a little bit when you're going over the listing contract, and go over it. And the main part, first of all, make sure you pull a title search on it, and make sure you're dealing with the proper people. You're dealing with mom and dad if they're on the title or whatever it is, or brother, sister, or the husband, wife, whatever it is. Don't just deal with one or the other, and make sure you're talking to both people. And getting, both parties are supposed to have a copy of the contract as well. I mean, that's kind of old school, but technically it's true. So if you have husband and wife, you're supposed to give them two copies. With emails these days, it's easier to do because you can say, Bill Smith and Sally Smith, and send them both an email. But make sure that you're communicating with both of them all the time. Don't assume that husbands and wife talk to each other, right, Mike? Because they don't. And I don't know how many times I've talked to a friend or anybody else, and you've talked to your buddy something to, you gave them, and you assume that they talked to their wife, or the wife talked to the husband, and they talked about it, and they didn't. And then you ask the other one the question, they got no clue. I've never heard anything about that. I don't know what's going on. So careful with that, and make sure that you're communicating with both. Set up your communications by email, or talk to them and ask your client at that time how they want to communicate with you. Do you prefer text? Do you prefer emails? Do you prefer phone calls? And the millennials, they won't even answer their phones. For me, I love emails because it's all credible, and I can track everything, and I know what's being said, and I love that. Gavin, you're gonna love text. You'll send me contracts on text. You'll send me this and that, and I'm driving my car with a little phone like this, trying to read your the clause that you made up. On my phone while I'm driving, and kind of thing, and it's very difficult. So yeah, yeah, well, yeah, my eyes aren't that good. So I'll always tell you guys, look, send it out to me on an email, send me a text to go read it. So what I'll do is then I'll pull it up on my screens, and I can read the whole contract and see the whole thing. And if you think you're bad, Gavin, you should see Goats up in he's one of our realtors up in the interior, and he's dealing with Indian bands, and he's dealing with the government, and it's the contracts he's sending me are, oh my God, like, who's doing what to who? What's happening here? Who's who? And they're just and I have to call him about 3 times. What's going on here, Goats? They're the most interesting things. He's selling farms and farmland, and all that kind of bush country up there. So he's got some really wild contracts. But anyway, with your client, make sure you're going through the contract with them, and especially go through the I think it's number 5I. I'm not being a seller here. It's 5I and 5II and 5III, and then 5III has A and B. That's that's real in the contract, and that what those refer to is how much is the total commission, how much is the cooperating broker's commission. If you pay the cooperating brokerage, how much is going to be left over for you as the final commission? And then if there is no other brokerage, what is your commission? That's usually the same as the number one. So when you're doing these percentages, I would suggest, and I've even done this now in the past, I'm starting to do it a little more, is I put dollar figures in there. So the last listing I took, I think I put, maybe the listing before the last, I don't know, the price was about 850,000 is what we wanted for it. We calculated that regular commission at 3.225, 1.1625 would have been about 11,500. So what I did is I charged her, usually I charge 3.5, give them a discount. Anyway, as it turned out, it was about $30,000 that I charged. I put in there $30,000. We're going to pay the other realtor 18 or 12,000, and we're going to keep 18. And I put that in dollar figures. When the MLS came out, the MLS said buyers, cooperating brokerages in, commission is $12,000. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you look at the expected remuneration for the seller, they want these in dollar. That's BCFSA. It wants the forms want them in dollar numbers. So with that kind of a listing contract, I don't really have to present them with 5 different numbers for the offers. They're all the same. So whether we sold it for 850 or 840 or 830, those numbers remain the same. They were fairly close, that kind of thing. So that's one option. But what I'm getting at there is you want to make sure everything is very clear on how that works and how the commission works and you're paying the other guys and what you're paying and all that other stuff. So make sure you're communicating that very clearly to your client and that they understand that. That got that in double ending. Have that conversation with them if you double end it. Um, do you know, Gavin? Do you know the difference between double ending and dual agency? Sorry to put you on the spot, but your mic's on mute. If you're not able to talk, that's fine. Well, bottom line is you can't do dual agency. BCFSA will take your license for that unless you're in a place like Goats where there is no other agent. Pardon me, up in the interior or something like that. So you can't do double agency, but you can double end a deal. So you can have one of the parties as non-represented. So you can't represent both parties. So you can have one represented and one non-represented, but you have to have the proper forms to do that. So within your contract, it has those 4 options: total commission, commission payable to the cooperating brokerage. A minus B equals what you get if there is a cooperating brokerage, and C or D is actually if there is no other cooperating brokerage, how much do you get? And usually that's the same as your total commission. You might want to give them a discount, throw in $5,000 or something like that. If you're getting the full thing, that's up to you. Not there. So make sure that it's very clear on that. Now, on the Schedule A, that's your secret sauce, your secret spice, whatever your 11 herbs and spices from KFC. That's what you do for your client that's special. And you want to put that in there, but you want to use that Schedule A as a communication tool. What are you going to do for those guys? What about your open houses? When are they going to happen? What's going to do? What if you have another realtor come in and do your open house for you? Are they representing the seller? Or are they not representing the seller? What does that mean, representing me? What does it mean they're not representing me? Why would I have somebody in my house that doesn't represent me? Well, they're going to sell your house for it. They're going to represent the buyer, not you. So we're not going to. They're just going to come and host the open house, but they don't represent you. If they find a buyer, they're on the other side of the deal here. They're not on our side, so we don't share any information with them. So they know anything about you other than the house is there and this is, the square footage and so on and so forth. They don't know your motivations. I don't share any other information with them. So be careful about that when you are having other realtors in the office host your opens. Don't share personal information about the owner if you can, and they're just there to do the open house to pick up the buyer and explain that to the owner what's going on. The other thing in there you want to go over is what about security in the house? What about I had a place once where I was doing an open house, and they were really a nice a group of people. They had all these kids and all that, and it was really cute because when I went up to look at the kids' rooms, they had all their stuff all stacked up and all nice and neat, and their books and their little stuff, and all their little things out there, and they had their little iPad or whatever they had going on, and their little mouse and all that sitting right in the desk, right? And then I seen all these other little kids coming through. Like there's hundreds of them. It was one of those, like one of those overwhelming thing. You have 50 people coming through and you lose track of everybody and everybody's all over the place and there's other kids there. Well, I was so scared that somebody would pocket something out of their room because kids are kids, and they all see something they like and, oh, I like that, oh, maybe I'll just take that when mom and dad aren't looking, kind of thing. So you want to talk a little bit about security, bonding, that kind of thing. And that's why we prefer in the office that we always have a realtor there looking out for our clients' best interest and their assets and so on and so forth. So we transfer that reliance to the buyer's agent when the buyer's agent brings their clients through. We don't want the buyer's agent sending their clients through on their own. So we don't allow that. If I give another realtor from another office a code, a 1-day code, or whatever it is, I certainly don't want them sharing that code with their client and sending their client to come and see it. Now, you guys have all seen where if you don't introduce your client to the property on the first thing, it's $500 for the cooperating brokerage. Well, that's to prevent that kind of thing. Just sending them out, go find a place. When you find a place, give me a call and I'll write an offer and I'll give you half back. That's what's going on in those things there. So we want to communicate with our client what we're doing and what we're protecting them in those kind of things. We always want a realtor in the house with their clients to protect our clients things. Sometimes they'll be on their own, and that's fine. That's what we have the rules. That we're professionals. We're bonded. We have errors and omissions, that kind of thing. So we want to kind of be careful about that. But that being said, make sure that your clients aren't leaving any valuable assets out. Okay, no watches, jewelry, that kind of thing. That's just silly. Put it in a safe, lock it away, hide it away somewhere, and make sure there's nothing, like that around. And usually they're good with that. So that's all in your communications. The other thing you want to do with your clients on a seller side is go through the contract of purchase and sale. They haven't been through one in years and years and years. They don't know what what these clauses are, what these conditions are, what the difference between, a condition and a warranty is, and explain that to them. What, seller warrants this, seller warrants that, there is no, fuel tank in the garage or in the grounds outside, whatever it is, they're warranting, or they, warrant it was never a grow up, that kind of thing, as opposed to a subject to this, subject to that going forward. Subject to sale. What is subject to sale? What does that mean? So you want to have that communication with your client going forward and go over a contract of purchase and sale with them. The other thing they're going to be confused with, and this is both for buyers and sellers. I'm going to kind of combine the buyer and seller thing here because I'm going to come back to buyers a little bit later on. But both the buyers and the sellers need to know you have to go through the contract with both your clients, the buyer and the seller, and go through those dates. They don't know the difference between the offer date, the acceptance dates, the subject removal date, the closing date, the possession date. So what are those 5 days? What does it all mean to anybody? Why do you have all these dates? Where am I getting paid? That's all I want to know, When is this deal done? When can I relax and go to the bank? Well, you can never go to the bank. That's managing expectations. We all know that. I don't know how many deals went south right at the last minute, and then we're scrambling and we're panicking and everything else. And we have that every other month. There's one of those going on, and it's nothing to do with us, but it's the client that has done something or missed something, or something gone wrong. They couldn't clear the title, or something was wrong with the title. And like Ken Pazer says, the only surprises in real estate are bad ones. So don't want to go there. So make sure you go over the contract and the closing process, all the way through it. So from the offer to the subjects, to the week that they have, or the 10 days they have to remove those subjects, what they're going to do, what's going to happen, to the subject removal, to the deposit. And this is kind of going on the buyer side. Manage your client, your buyers on the deposit side. We continually get people giving us deposits by checks and by certified checks. We don't allow those in the office. And there's a reason for that. Technically, you can pay with pennies, or a check is fine, technically on the contract side. But that puts everybody in jeopardy. That puts you, the buyer, the seller's realtor, in our office and the other office in jeopardy. Because if something happens to that deposit and the check bounces, and they can be returned up to 30 days if there's something amiss going on, and the buyer says, oh, there's fraud, I didn't remove, whatever it is, they can pull it back. And the problem is that our account will have the money in it because we have a trust account. They'll pull it back out of our account, and if we've already sent the excess funds to the other office, we're going to be in a really big conundrum, and it's going to be a big problem trying to get it back and so on and so forth. So all we accept for deposits is bank drafts or wire transfers, EFTs. So make sure you're having that conversation with your client. Now, the thing with an EFT, and let me give you an example of this. We had what the client told her realtor was a bank draft. It kind of looked like a bank draft, but it wasn't. It had a different bank in it. It wasn't a Canadian bank. It was a Canadian bank, but a really small one that I didn't recognize. And we called our bank, "Is this a bank?" It looked like one. Had all the markings of it, two signatures, the whole thing, kind of thing. And the bank said, "No, that's not a bank draft at all. It's not even a certified check." So we had to put a stop payment on this, and then we had to get the money wired to us. Well, within the contract, it actually said bank draft or wire transfer in the contract. So, but the problem was now is that we didn't receive a bank draft or wire transfer within the timelines in the contract. So we had to get the money, we had to put a stop payment on the check, and we had to ask the buyer to provide us with a money wire. Now, they did it on a Friday, and then Friday we never got. They sent it on the Friday. We never got it on the Friday, and it's not the time that they send it; it's the time we receive it in our accounts. So we have to call our bank and confirm when it goes in. Well, it didn't go in until late last night or whatever it was, and by that time, everybody's stressed right out. I'm telling you, realtors, you guys freak out. You guys know that. When we shake your rice bowl, man, it's crazy, and it's not us. It's the circumstances, right? So when your deal is in jeopardy, I know I've been there. It's a panic situation. It's really stressful to you, and we're trying to calm you down and say, look, but we need this, we need that. We try to work with it. So that's again communication. So please, guys, make sure that when you're working with a buyer, or pardon me, that they're providing a bank draft or wire transfer. If you're a selling agent, it's in your client's interest, in our interest, that that is a bank draft and you have a copy of it. And if it doesn't look like a bank draft in the copy, question it. Question it. Say, look, that really doesn't look like a bank draft because you're working in your client's best interest. It's important for you to kind of, scrutinize everything. It's kind of like, the two situations where, one, are they pre-approved and a lot? Can I see your, let me talk to your mortgage broker, your banker, confirming they're pre-approved when you got multiple offers and you got some guy coming in saying he's all approved. The other one is making sure that, they've got the proper draft. And the other one, of course, is when it's subject to sale. And that's another thing you should be explaining to your client up front, subject to the sale of the buyer's property. What does that mean? Well, you're going to go and look at the buyer's property and make sure that it not go look at it, but look it up on the MLS and make sure it's valued in a reasonable amount, so that it's going to sell in a reasonable amount of time. So you're doing your due diligence, and that's the same with your deposit. Make sure you're looking at that deposit. If it's and I would say that if it's not CIBC, Bank of Montreal, TD, National Bank, one of the big banks, or maybe one of the credit unions, Van City, and that kind of thing, I would question it. I really question it. So it's your duty and your due diligence to make sure that the deposit is paid, even if you're the listing agent. So be careful about that going forward. So that's what I've got on working with the listing, as a listing agent and communicating with them. Use that Schedule A to your advantage. Make sure you're going through all that stuff with them, and slow down, take the time, make sure you're there. Now, another really important thing is, and we all know this, is that on your Schedule A, make sure that you put in there, and Mike doesn't agree with this all the time, and I don't know if Rhiannon does or not, but I'm sure she will now. um, if the contract is canceled by the seller, that the realtor can go back and claim all their expenses for the photographs, the floor plans, the all this stuff on there, if they cancel it arbitrarily on their own and it's not agreed upon. And then you have the option to say yes, okay, come back and list me when you're ready, or no, I want my money. And Mike and I have dealt with. I don't know how many times Mike and I have dealt with that, but we've had some real wingdings on that one there, and trying to get the money on your behalf and, trying to claim more than even that. And it's like, no, if it's not in writing, it doesn't count. And if it's important, put it in writing. That's my thing that, that's the crutch of the whole thing here is if it's important, put it in writing. If it's not in writing, it doesn't count. Remember that. That's always going to be the case with us and with me. If you come to me, even with two realtors, if you guys have agreed on something in the office there, and as it comes out again to communications, you guys do a deal. You kind of do a referral back and forth, but it's that's a friend of mine. Don't worry about it. I know them. They're great. They're no problem at all. It's going to happen. That is. But you understand it one way. They understand it another way. Coming to my office because there's a dispute now. Somebody thought it was 60-40. You thought it was 50-50. They thought it was 60-40. Well, do you have anything in writing? Well, if you don't, I can't say, no, so and so's a liar, you're a liar, they're a liar. We can't make you're gonna have to come to some agreement with them. So again, it comes down to communication and put it in writing. So always that thing is in writing. You're going to learn how to do that. And Mike and I do that all the time. I work back and forth with Mike. Anything that's important, I'll CC him on it and we'll do that and make sure that we're all copied. If you need something and there's some problem, you can CC me or CC Mike and you have a witness to that. That's an internal thing. Sometimes from my point of view as a managing broker, I'll ask you to CC me when you're communicating with another realtor. We're going to get into that one in a little bit here too. Where are we at here? 10:30. You guys need a quick break here or what? Anybody need to go to the washroom or get a coffee or whatever? You guys didn't ask me if I need it. I'm kidding. I got my water, my coffee, everything here. So we're going to move on here. I'll try and get through all this. There's a lot of stuff to go. So communications, open up a line of communications. Avoiding conflicts. I'm going to go there. Other realtors we talked about, lock boxes we talked about, valuables we talked about, go over the offer, acceptance removal dates, dealing with buyers. Number one thing with buyers, guys, it's really, really easy. Use an exclusive buyer's agency agreement. Now, even if they don't sign it, use it as a template for your first or second or third meeting with these people to go over what you're expected to do and what they're expected to do. Now, I had another guy in my office the other day, yesterday, the day before, I can't remember, but they had a wily buyer, and the buyer wouldn't listen to them, and the buyer said that our guy was not only a realtor, but he's an IT guy as well. So he, did both. And they were talking about this Nest thing, and the Nest thing is a security thing, and it's cameras and so on. I don't even know. That's beyond me. So the thing was is that somehow they got into a conversation where our guy said that he would, give them a Nest system and all that other stuff. And he's being an IT guy, and it was kind of a friend of his, I guess. I don't know what the deal was there, but anyway, when it came down, he gave him the Nest, and the guy said, well, "When are you going to install it?" And our guy said, "Well, I didn't tell you I was going to install it." And so the fight began, right? Well, why you give me this thing if you're not going to install it? So there was a miscommunication there for sure, but I don't think it was our guy. He had a problem client all the way through. The client kept putting words in his mouth and assuming he's going to do this and assuming he's going to do that. He's going to pay for this, pay for that. And our guy was, again, very, very adamant that he wasn't. And he had those conversations. And thank God his wife, the client's wife, he was a hothead, and he would go off and go off and get mad and say this and that and something else. And it would go back and forth, and they would argue this and argue that, and I'd say, well, make sure it's ready, and they're doing the text back and forth now. So now, if you've ever tried to track text when you're trying to get something, it's very hard to say who said what to whom when. They're not very trackable. That's why I prefer the emails. They're dated. You know who they're from clearly. You're clearly what you're said. So what I often do in that case, and Mike tells me to do this as well. You do the email back to the person as per our conversation of today's date, whatever it was, this is, what, how it went down. This is what happened. Please acknowledge it. So use that kind of, email thing to kind of reinforce whatever it was you're doing when you got a problem client. We all know the guy out there. Rihanna has called me, I don't know how many times, with these clients that are just nuts. They won't listen to you. They're off on a tangent. They're doing whatever they do. So we need to kind of back ourselves up. And unfortunately, that's what we do. Now, the good thing on this one here, the guy was driving him nuts. He was, doing this and that. And he says, I don't want him as a client anymore. I said to him, well, did the deal close? Yeah, it closed. I said, well, here's my advice to you. Open up your banking account, look at your bank account, and see that money in there, right? Does that make you feel any better? Because you're gonna have to deal with the guy. So, and that's the whole thing, right? And we put up with all this crap. We get beat up, and Mike and Paul knows this too. We've all dealt with these clients but when you look at that bank account at the end of the day, okay, I can deal with this, and on you go. So, keep that there. But again, with your buyers, exclusive buyers agency agreement, do go over a contract to purchase and sell with them. They need to understand the same things that the seller does. They don't know what subjects are. They don't know what warranties are. Explain the difference between the two. All the dates are very important. They haven't got a clue what these dates are. Subject removal date. What's the offer date? The subject removal date. What's the acceptance date? What's the closing date? What's the possession date? That kind of thing. And again, going back to what I was talking about earlier, have the conversation about the deposit. Where's the deposit coming from? Is it coming from your RSPs? And Paul knows how many days does it take RSPs for some of these banks? It takes about a week to get it out of there. So, and make sure that they've arranged for everything to happen. And again, what I always tell you guys on your contracts, put the deposit will be paid within 1 business day of final subject removal. So if you remove subjects on a Friday and a long weekend, that'll give you till the Tuesday. If you put within 24 hours of final subject removal and you're moving on a Friday, you're going to be scrambling to get the money on a Saturday. Well, if their bank is closed on a Saturday, you're screwed. Now you have to have, a late deposit form signed by the seller, and you don't want to do that. So, go over those things and preempt any miscommunications you might have. Talking with your client, go over all that stuff in front of the time, and you know, you really don't want to get to. And the other thing about commissions, have that conversation about what you get paid with your buyer up front. Normally I get, 3.225, 1.625 in the balance, and it's the seller that pays. Don't worry about it. You don't have to worry about anything. It's the seller that pays, not your problem. But every once in a while we'll run into somebody that has a substandard pay. It could be a FISBO, for sale by owner, that doesn't pay anything, in which case you're going to have to go to them and present them with a fee agreement to make sure that I get paid, and if they don't want to pay me, that's fine. Then you're going to have to pay me. But in that case, we'll just go low on the offer that we're making. The difference is going to be my commission. So instead of offering them 500,000, we're going to only offer them 490, but you're going to pay 500 because you're going to pay them 490 and 10 for me. Is that okay? Now you want to have that conversation when you're having a coffee at Starbucks or Waves or wherever you're at, rather than after the offer's been presented. Well, how am I going to get paid? Well, by the way, I need to get paid, so you're going to have to pay me 10 grand. Don't want to have it at that time. So have it a little earlier. Make sure you're communicating that. That's where you're going to get your miscommunications and your problems. Okay, we got part 3. This is the most fun one. Dealing with outside realtors. Has anybody ever had a problem with another realtor, another office? Has anybody never not had a problem with a realtor in another office? It's like, it's every day. It's crazy. And you'd think that some of these guys never read the rules of cooperation. It's crazy. It's kind of like the guy today this morning that I got the call where they're going to file a complaint on our guy and he hasn't even, done anything. So we're going to have to, push back a little bit. But I think the number one thing there is stay professional. Don't lose your cool. think about what you're doing. Take a deep breath. If you have to, hang up and call them back, then do that. Don't lose your cool and call them whatever you think they are, because they are. But don't, take a step back. Give me your mic a call. We're your coach. You're in the corner. We're in your corner. You're in a fight there. You're gonna go back into the ring and you're gonna, duke it out with him. But you want to have the right strategy going forward. So use us to help you out and bounce it off us, even if it's the middle of the night. And I get these a lot. These are most of the ones. And the first thing I usually ask you, this is when it comes down to it, is who are you working for? Are you working for the buyer or the seller? And then we kind of filter it out from there. What's in whose best interests are we working in? And usually, if it's a buyer, it's the buyer. And usually it's a buyer seller kind of thing, and the seller's being an arse, and you're kind of trying to get around that. And the way I look at that is my buyer wants the property, but it's the not the seller, it's the seller's agent getting in my way. They're the obstacle that I got to get around some way, shape, or form in order to achieve my client's goals, which is buying that property. So how am I going to get around that guy? And one we had here was our guy called. It was a busier time, and he had it listed, but he wasn't showing. And we knew what was going on. He was trying to find his own buyer and so on and so forth. And it was one of this guy. Of course, it's the guy that's been in 20 years and he knows everything. Look, I've been doing this for 20 years. I know what's in it. You all heard it. And that's the worst guy. As soon as they say I've been in the business 20 years, they know everything, and they're not going to listen to anybody. Anyway, he wouldn't let our guy into the property. So our guy called me. I called the managing broker, and I think the managing broker was scared of the realtor because he really wouldn't do a whole lot. But I asked our guy, well, who are you working for? Work for the buyer. I asked myself, well, who am I working for? Well, I'm working for a realtor who's working for the buyer. So I'm working for them. So the other managing broker was hesitant to call their own realtor. And he asked me if I could call the realtor. I said, fine, I'll call him because I can't talk to other realtors, by the way. As managing broker, I can't call and give shit to another realtor. And realtors from other offices can't call and complain to me about you. I'll ask them to refer it to their managing broker. So if the managing broker calls me, and we're supposed to be cool-headed guys and girls and talk together, and that doesn't always happen either. Get a little excited once in a while too. But anyway, he said, go ahead and call him. So I called him, and I'm in my head, I'm like, I wanted to rip a new one, and Mike knows I'm very good at that. If I lose it, no, I'm very bad at that. Maybe not good at it. I'm very bad at it. So I called him, and I kind of was quite professional about it. Asked what the problem is. He's, well, I'm not talking to that guy. He's an asshole. Our guy. He's talking about our guy. So what? Look, we need to see it. What's the deal? When's it available? He says, well, so I made an appointment for a guy. I called our guy back, and I made an appointment with this guy, and then he wouldn't talk to our guy. So as a managing broker, I'm like, well, why the hell am I involved in this shit? It's this bullshit. But then I had to ask myself, well, who do I work for? Well, I work for you, and you work for the client. So I work for the client. So what's in our client's best interest? To get our guy in there and do the showing. We got the guy in, and I had to go back and forth with everybody, and I was the go-between with everybody. We got them in, our guy bought it. It was crazy. It was crazy. Our guy bought the place at the end of the day. But that being said, we had to get around this obstacle, which was the obstinate other realtor going forward. So think about that going forward. Now, and Mike's had this a number of times, and I've had a number of times now. A lot of times it's with female realtors, and they're very male realtors. Some of them are very rude and abusive, and don't treat or realtors the way they deserve to be treated, and courtesy, and so on and so forth. And Mike's made the calls, and I've made the calls. I can't call them directly. Mike can. He's not licensed, so he can call them directly. But as a managing broker, I can't call the other realtor. So I had two gals that were working together, mentor mentee, and this guy was saying off-colored stuff and all kinds of stuff. I can't call them directly, but again, I had to talk with the girls and say, look, okay, listen, who are we working for? It was the buyer. And I said, okay, you got an offer on the table. Is it a good offer? Does your client like it? I said, yeah, it's really good. We kind of lowballed it. We got it. Okay. All right. Here's what we're going to do. First of all, we're going to win. We're going to win this deal. And then we're going to file a complaint against the guy. So let's get it through, get it pushed through, get it going. But I need you to itemize everything or get everything in writing and write it down and make sure that they're responding back in emails and try and get them to, say something in writing that we can use when it goes to the board or the council, wherever we're end up sending that at the end of the day. And consequently, we got the deal done. And then it was up to us to file a complaint against this guy and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, they decided, not to move forward. But the bottom line was, again, we had to kind of deal with an obstacle, and it was not a pleasant one. It was, and the poor gal, it was her first deal, and I felt so sorry for her. And having to deal with this, and this is her introduction to real estate. And Rhiannon, you know what kind of crap's out there. The poor realtor was in tears half the time. She didn't cry, but she felt like it, I'm sure. And at the end of the day, I called her and I sent her a really nice email. And I said, look, I'm really sorry for the industry, but you did a really terrific job here. You stuck to your guns. You got through this thing and you got the deal done. It was one of the toughest deals I've seen as well. So she felt very good about that and appreciated my email to her because it meant a lot. But those kind of things are going to happen to us. So if you do have a problem, realtor, try and get it in writing if they can commit to whatever they're doing or swearing or whatever in writing. And then we have something we can take to the board and complain. Um, the other thing you can use as well when dealing with an unprofessional realtor is, and I mentioned to this guys a lot, if they're not returning calls, doing stuff like that, what I ask you guys to do is look up who their managing broker is, if it's Fred Smith or whatever. And if they're not returning calls, look, send them an email or a text, whatever. Look, if you don't return my call, I'm going to have my managing broker call your managing broker, Fred Smith. Don't just say your managing broker. That's not quite enough because everybody has managed. But if you put their name in there, so if Gavin gets a text mail that says, "Look, Gavin, if you don't call me back, I'm going to call your manager. I'm going to have my manager broker call Doug Folds." Then it has a little more weight to it because it's got their name in it, and it kind of fakes them out a little bit, and you get that call back. And I don't really want to get involved in a guy not returning calls. I mean, I don't want to call another managing broker doesn't want to deal with that. We got other things to do. We got other problems that we're dealing with. So, try and kind of move things along. And I use that a lot. I even use it with BCFSA. Sometimes I'll CC a higher up to kind of make sure they read my email, do it, kind of thing. So it works a little bit. So think about that. And bottom line is, if it doesn't work, call me and I'll call the other managing broker. That's the end of the line. You can't talk to the other managing broker. The other realtors can't talk to me directly. They can talk to me, but I'm not supposed to talk to them. So I'm supposed to talk to the other managing broker. So look up on BCFSA. Look up their managing broker's name and mention their managing broker by name. It makes it sound like you know them as well. Hey, do you want me to call, have my manager call Doug Folds, your manager there? Yeah, Mike knows everybody. He drops names like there's no tomorrow. So do a little name dropping to get it done for your client. Okay, that's it. So finally, in summary, avoiding conflicts. Number one, don't assume anything. Number two, get it in writing. Number three, if it's important, put it in the contract. Rhiannon knows that, right, Rhiannon? We were talking about that last night. Get it in the contract. Uh, put your ego aside and pick up the phone. So a lot of times it's the two realtors getting in each other's way. They're tripping over the thing. The seller wants to sell, the buyer wants to sell, and it's the realtor's egos. So pick up the phone and say, geez, sorry, I think we have a misunderstanding here. Can we work something out? Best try and get something done on that one there. Communicate it. So, and communicate. Communicate with your seller, your buyer, the other realtor, make sure you're opening that line of communications. You're always open. Don't. The other one is this old guy in the one of the offices working in. He's great realtor, awesome guy, John Panrucker. Always said to me, he called me once. Says, a good realtor always answers their phone. It went to voicemail, and that's so real. When you guys call me, and Paul knows this, we all know that. If you answer your phone right away, people love it, or you get back to them right away. Don't let things fester and go on. If you got a problem, deal with it up front. Get it out there, get it on the table, and start dealing with it. It's not going to go away on its own. So, communicate that and always try and answer your phone. Don't let it go to voicemail and your voice. I hate that when you call somebody and then you go to voicemail and it says voicemail full. And that's one of the biggest complaints I get as a managing broker is that somebody called one of the realtors, to try and complain. It's a client, usually it's the member of the public. And I said, I tried to call him and leave a message, but his voicemail was full. So I'm calling you. Well, there's no reason for that, you guys. I mean, make sure you're returning your calls and I don't care how busy you are. That's your number one priority. Return your calls and answer your phone when you can. That's all I got, Mike. You got anything?
I think it's a timely topic because the market is what the market is, and we all know it. We're not doing cartwheels. Stress level is up here. And we're human and people have good days and bad days. So if you read something when you're having a bad day, you're going to read it in a bad attitude. And if you send something positive to somebody that's having a bad day, they're going to read it in their attitude. So always take the high road. If you need help, I think Doug's said it 100 times. Just call Doug and I, take a break. Nothing needs to be replied to immediately, and get a second opinion on it and ask for help, right? And there are a lot of good professionals out there and other brokerages in our marketplace, and those are the ones that we really want to do business with. And just because you have a complaint or disagreement with somebody, eventually you're probably going to do a lot of business with that person if you can get around everybody's idiosyncrasies and stuff like that. I don't really have anything to add. Those are just life cases. It's life. I wrote down a couple notes. I think, Doug, you hit it with the deposits. Make sure that they are a bank draft. The scenario that we had, it was a handwritten check from the bank. So, and some banks are not everybody's a CIBC, RBC, right? So we were told by the customer it's a bank draft, but we were told by the bank it wasn't a bank draft. So we take the bank word on that one. So we try to nip it in the butt as quick as possible when we see it. But when you see it first and you have a question, please bring it to our attention, because sometimes staff will just take the checks and what they're directed to is scan it and put it into our account. But I don't want to scan a non-bank draft check. I'd rather just say that's not what we want. One other thing, open houses. For those of you, I'd really like you guys to do it in-house, do our open houses. But if you have a friend that's another realtor that needs a favor and you're going to do an open house, then I don't mind, but make sure the seller acknowledges that you're doing it. I think that's the rule, Doug. The seller has to give approval for that.
You have to use your own signs too. You can't use the listing.
Yeah. So anyway, just make sure that you got your butt covered on that one, and you'll be good. Doing a favor for somebody never hurts, but the Fosters and the Lambs and everybody else in this office who has listings that needs some help with opens, that should be priority number one for everybody. That's all I have today, Doug. I think that was really good, and that recording is going to go miles for everybody, and probably that should be one on our every quarter just to get everybody to re-listen to again. Is take your attitude in check. We're all human. Good days, bad days. Ask for help. I had one of our realtors the other day had a real serious conflict with somebody. not a licensee, but like a trade, whatever. And it got really ugly. And so call me. I have no problem calling that person and standing them up and telling them to back off. Because we will record our notes, and if we have to send it to the proper authorities, we will. And that person, I believe, understood, made an apology, having a bad day. Lots of things happened to that guy. But anyway, ask for help. We're here for you. And if you think that you're going to meet a customer and you're not quite sure on the customer, bring them into the office, bring them into a public space, ask somebody to go with you, because you don't need that one more customer if that's going to come down your way. But anyway, crazy market, crazy politicians pretty much everywhere these days. Anyway, that's all I have today, Doug. That was a really good job. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your
Thanks,
time.
Doug.
No meeting next week, guys. It's the Truth and Reconciliation Tuesday, so enjoy the day and get out and wear an orange T-shirt.
Okay, sounds good. Take care.
BC Lions has orange too, guys.
Okay.
See ya.